Margaret stood by the window of their estate, watching her husband Richard pace the garden below. The string lights twinkled like stars. The three-tiered cake sat perfect and untouched, and rainbow-wrapped presents covered the gift table. Everything was ready for their daughter Emma's 8th birthday party. Everything except the guests. Richard checked his gold watch for the 100th time. 3:30. The party had started an hour ago. Not a single child had arrived. Emma sat in her wheelchair near the cake table. Her pink party dress spread around her like flower petals. She wore a matching headband in her hair and held her hands folded in her lap. She wasn't crying. That somehow made it worse. Margaret came outside and knelt beside her daughter. "Maybe they're just running late, sweetheart," she said softly. Emma looked at her mother with eyes far too understanding for an 8-year-old. "It's okay, Mama. I know why they didn't come." Richard stopped pacing. His jaw tightened. He had built a technology empire from nothing. He could solve any problem, fix any situation. But he couldn't fix this. He couldn't make other children want to come to his daughter's party. 6 months ago, Emma had been running and dancing like any other child. Then came the car accident. The doctors said the paralysis might be temporary, might be permanent. They didn't know. What they did know was that Emma would be in a wheelchair for a very long time. When they had returned from the hospital, something had changed. Phone calls from other parents became shorter, colder. Playdates were canceled. Birthday party invitations stopped coming. Margaret had sent out 30 invitations for today. 30 families they had known for years. 0 had come. Richard pulled out his phone to call someone, anyone, when they heard footsteps on the garden path. A boy appeared through the gate. He looked about 10 years old, wearing a blue sweater that was too small for him and jeans with patches on the knees. His brown hair was neatly combed. In his hands, he carried a small green box wrapped in orange ribbon. The 3 of them stared at him. "Hello," the boy said. "Is this Emma's birthday party?" Richard found his voice first. Yes, it is. And you are." "I'm Thomas. I live in the small house behind the park. I saw the balloons from the road." He looked at Emma. "Happy birthday." Emma's face transformed. A genuine smile spread across her features. "Thank you," she whispered. Thomas walked over and held out the green box. "I made this for you. I wasn't invited or anything, so I hope it's okay that I came." Margaret's throat tightened. This boy, this stranger, was showing more kindness than 30 families they called friends. "Of course it's okay," she said. "Please, sit down. Would you like some cake?" Thomas sat in the chair next to Emma's wheelchair. "I'd love some cake. I've never had a cake that big before." As Margaret cut slices, Richard watched the boy. His clothes were worn, but clean. His shoes had been polished despite being old. There was a dignity in how he carried himself. "So, Thomas, how do you know about the party?" Richard asked. "I didn't, sir. I was walking home from the library when I saw all the decorations. And then I saw Emma sitting here alone. It didn't seem right for someone to be alone at their own birthday party." Emma carefully unwrapped the green box. Inside was a hand-carved wooden butterfly, painted in bright colors. "I made it myself," Thomas explained. "My grandfather taught me with carving before he died. He said butterflies mean transformation and hope." He glanced at Emma's wheelchair, then back at her face. "I thought you might like it." Emma held the butterfly like it was made of glass. "It's beautiful. It's the best present I've ever gotten." They spent the next hour together. Thomas told jokes that made Emma laugh. He admired the garden and asked Richard intelligent questions about his work. He helped Emma blow out her candles and cheered loudly when she made her wish. As the sun began to set, Margaret walked Thomas to the gate. "Thank you," she said. "You gave my daughter something precious today." Thomas looked back at Emma, who was still holding her butterfly. "Everyone deserves to feel special on their birthday," he said simply. "My mom always says kindness doesn't cost anything but means everything." After Thomas left, Richard and Margaret sat with Emma in the garden. The party decorations glowed in the twilight. "Papa," Emma said. "Yes, sweetheart." "I'm glad they didn't come." Richard and Margaret looked at each other, confused. "Why, honey?" Margaret asked. "Because then I got to meet Thomas. He didn't come because he had to. He came because he wanted to. That's better than 30 people who come because their parents made them." Richard felt something break open in his chest. His 8-year-old daughter, who had every reason to be bitter, had just taught him something about grace. That night, after Emma was asleep, Richard made some calls. He learned that Thomas lived with his mother in a small rental house. His father had died 3 years ago. His mother worked 2 jobs to support them. Thomas spent his afternoons at the library because their house was too small and crowded. The next morning, Richard showed up at Thomas's house. "Mr. Harrison." Thomas looked surprised. "Is everything okay? Did I do something wrong?" "You did something very right," Richard said. "I'd like to talk to you and your mother." He offered Thomas's mother a job at his company, with better pay and benefits. He set up a scholarship fund for Thomas's education. But more importantly, he asked if Thomas would like to visit Emma regularly. "She could use a friend," Richard said. "A real one." Over the following months, Thomas came to visit 3 times a week. He and Emma played games, did homework together, and talked about everything and nothing. He never treated her wheelchair like it was the most important thing about her. To him, she was just Emma. Slowly, Emma began physical therapy. Some days were hard. Some days she cried from frustration. But Thomas was always there, encouraging her, believing in her. A year later, Emma took her first steps with a walker. Thomas was there, cheering louder than anyone. 2 years later, she walked unassisted into her 10th birthday party. This time, the garden was full of people, but the first person she hugged was Thomas, who still came to visit even though she didn't need a wheelchair anymore. Because somewhere between that lonely 8th birthday and now, Thomas had become more than a friend. He had become family. Richard often thought about that afternoon, about 30 families who never came and one boy who did, about how his daughter had taught him that real friendship isn't about convenience or comfort. It's about showing up, especially when it's hard, and about how sometimes the greatest gifts come in the smallest packages, carried by the kindest hearts. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about kindness and hope. Leave a comment below telling us about a time when someone's unexpected kindness changed your day. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.